Hey everybody, it's David from Fifth Hammer here, coming to you with our very first battle report for the channel. It's my first time doing this, so I can't promise it's going to be as polished as most of the ones that you've seen, but hopefully it proves to be enjoyable and you have fun watching. So here's the situation. We're going to be playing a scenario called Baggage Train from the Warhammer Skirmish supplement for 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle. And what that involves is the group with the baggage train is going to be starting right about here, and they're going to need to bring it through our little imaginary road. I view it as kind of a clearing in the terrain, all the way down here around the rock outcrop to the very foot of the bridge. And if they get it there, then they've won. And if they fail to do so, then they've lost. And carrying our baggage train today is going to be a force of Nordlanders that you can see here. I'm going to be borrowing a Bretonnian warhorse as well as one of my wizard's horses to help carry it, as well as some Hero Quest treasure chests, which represent the baggage carts. And opposing them, you might say ambushing them today, are going to be Dark Elves. And you see them here. And kind of the narrative that I've shaped for this scenario is going to be, as you can tell here, my troops are painted up in Nordland garb. And in Nordland, there is a very famous toll road that runs through the northern part of the empire, and which Nordland collects tax on to get a lot of their income. And so today we're going to be having our Nordland escort carry some tax levies down the toll road, and belaying them are going to be some Dark Elves. And for those of you who know, you see 4 Corsairs right there, and Nordland runs on the northern coast of the Empire. And so for our scenario today, we're going to imagine that a Black Ark has come close to shore and let loose some raiding parties to go ahead and do some reaving, take some gold, treasure, and of course, as Dark Elves are wont to do, slaves. So here's the scenario. These are our forces, which we'll take a look at in a little more detail momentarily. I'm going to get them set up and we will get into it. Showcasing here our Empire baggage train force. We've got the 3 baggage train horses and their goods right there. We've got a Knight of the Inner Circle right there. We've got Pistoliers there and there. And then surrounding the force is mostly Free State militia, led by a swordsman. And then there's 3 crossbowmen there, and there. So they will be the ones today looking to get the goods up to the bridge. Let's see if they can do it. All right, taking a look at our Dark Elf deployment here. We've got a Corsair and 2 repeater crossbows and a second Corsair lined up here behind the trees on this hillside. And so their intention is going to be to catch the baggage train unawares. And then hiding over here, we have 2 Cold One Knights, and their intention is going to be to wait for when the timing's right and break out around the corner here, take a target of opportunity. And then over here on the left side, we have a repeater crossbowman and 2 Corsairs waiting to pop out and catch the Empire defenders unaware. And then back here, we have a little more long distance fire support with a single repeater crossbowman ready to throw some bolts downrange at the Empire baggage train. So here it is. Let's see what happens. So Dark Elf movement phase on turn 1, not much happened. These 2 repeater crossbows just snuck just around the corner of that craggy outcrop to be able to see just the front of the Empire baggage train. The Cold Ones skirted up a little bit, but they're staying out of line of sight of the point man on the baggage train because they don't want to be shot or charged at just yet. The crossbowman here advanced down to here, and the crossbowman who was there popped out. Again, wanting to keep a safe distance from the enemy, but still be able to fire. So we'll resolve the shooting phase and see what happens. So the first Dark Elf to fire here will be the Dark Elf on the left. He's elevated, so per the Warhammer Skirmish rules, he can pick any target that he can see, and he's going to take a shot at the point man there, the swordsman with that nice bronze shield. He is within half range, but he will take a -1 for moving and shooting and -1 for firing 2 bolts. So that brings his natural to hit of a 3 up to a 5. We'll roll 2 dice here. Let's see what happens. A 3 and a 1, so both missed. Then his partner will go ahead and take the shot at the lovely chap standing next to our point man with the two-handed sword. Again, taking 2 shots, needs a modified 5+ to hit. Let's see what happens. 5 and a 6, so that's 2 hits. Strength 3 on the repeater crossbow to toughness 3 of the target. 2 hits, let's see. 3 and a 3, somehow the shots don't get through. Guess we can imagine them embedding themselves in his big bear cape down here. He sees the Dark Elves just in time and pulls his bearskin cape over his shoulder, and the 2 poison-tipped barbs fly right in. So there is our first shooting attack. Our third shooting attack will resolve from this gentleman here, and he can see all the models at the front of the caravan, and he is going to take a shot at his fellow crossbowman across the way. Now let's check range here, 12 inches. So he is under half, which means that he will need a 4+ to hit. Sorry, strike that. 5+, -1 for moving and -1 for firing 2 shots. So here we go. Let's take a roll and see what happens. Got a 5 and a 4, so that's 1 hit. Strength 3 to toughness 3. Again, fails to wound. I guess it embeds itself in the leather jacket of our brave Nordlander, and he shrugs it off. Last guy to shoot here will be this gentleman over here. He is going to be at max range, and he too will go ahead and shoot at the crossbowman. And he's going to need a 6+ to hit because he's firing 2 bolts. He moved and he's over half range. Let's see if he can do any better for us. 3 and a 4, no dice. So ineffective shooting for Dark Elves on turn 1. Now it's Empire turn 1, and we will see what they will do. I don't think they have any charges to declare. Maybe we'll try. Well, I think they're too far off. Yeah, I think they're probably too far off. So we're going to see how the Empire troops move and get themselves into position to react to this ambush. So I'll do the movement and I'll show you where everything ends up. All right, here we are at the conclusion of the Empire movement phase. Our veteran swordsman here has led 2 state troops up behind him, directly up into the face of the ambushers to confront them. Our pistoliers have rushed forward to provide firing support to the advancing infantry. Our 2 crossbowmen here have positioned themselves to return fire against the Dark Elves waiting up here in the woods. And then over here, you can see that these 2 state troops have come up here as well. They're taking shelter here on the other side of the cliff face. Meanwhile, our commander, our knight, has stayed in reserve to protect the baggage, the precious cargo, along with 2 state troops and a crossbowman. They've also importantly decided that they're Not going to move the baggage train this turn, as they are uncertain whether or not it would be wise to advance that directly into the ambushers. So we will now move into shooting, and let's see where that ends up. So the first bit of Empire shooting, we are going to have Old One-Eye, as I like to call him, and his dashing compatriot fire back up into the rocks. It's going to be a tough shot because they're going to be in cover, and they're humans, so they only hit on 4+ anyway. So we're going to go ahead and call that, well, I don't know what to call it. Hard cover, soft cover. They are behind a rock, so I'm going to go with hard cover. So we're going to say that our Imperial crossbowmen there need 6s to hit. Thankfully, both are within half range, so they don't take any further penalties on that. So let's roll the dice, see what happens. 5 and a 5. So close. So very close. The bolts firing back, ping off the rocky crag and right over the Dark Elves' head. But they stay unscathed as the exchange of fire continues. Our next guy to shoot is going to be this crossbowman here in the skull cap and the red vest. And he's going to be firing way down range to this crossbowman back here, who's really the only target he can see. It is long range, so he'll take a -1, which moves his base 4+ to hit up to a 5. Let's see if he can do it. 3. No good. Another bolt flies harmlessly overhead. Our next bit of shooting is going to see a pistolier here fire into that repeater crossbowman there, as he is in the open and a clear target. However, our pistolier did move, so he's going to need a 5 up to hit. Let's see if he can do it. Oh, he gets a 6. Excellent shot. So the strength 4 on the pistol against the Dark Elves toughness 3. Let's see if it's good enough to wound. And it is. It's a hit and a wound. So that will knock him out. And we will take a look here and see what the wound reaction is, following the old Warhammer Skirmish chart. 2. Let me take a look and tell you what that is. So the result of a 1 or a 2 is knocked down. The force of the blow knocks the warrior down. Place the model face up to show that he has been knocked down. Let's do that. The warrior who's been knocked down falls to the ground either because of a jarring blow or because he's slipped or thrown himself to the ground to avoid injury. Turn the model face up to show he's been knocked down. He may crawl 2 inches during the movement phase, but cannot fight in close combat, shoot, or cast spells. If he's in base-to-base contact with an enemy, a knockdown model can crawl 2 inches away only if the enemy is engaged in close combat with another opponent. Otherwise, he has to stay where he is. In combat, he cannot strike back, and the enemy will have a good chance of putting him out of action. A warrior who's been knocked down may stand up at the start of his next turn. In that turn, he may move at half rate, shoot, cast spells, though he cannot charge or run. If he's engaged in close combat, he may not move away and will automatically strike last, irrespective of weapons or initiative. After this turn, the fighter moves and fights normally, even though he has no wounds left. If the model takes any further wounds, then roll for injury once more, exactly as if the model has just sustained its last wounds. So we've got one Dark Elf wounded who's been knocked down. And then our next pistolier is going to take a shot over the heads of his friendlies and fire into one of those Dark Elf Corsairs. He's going to need a 6 because not only did he move, but the target's more than half his range of 8 away. So let's see if he can do it. Almost. Shot fires off into the distance. You can't trust those black powder weapons to be accurate. So that's the end of the Empire shooting phase. They have no close combat, so it's going to be on to Dark Elf turn 2. So let's take a look at Dark Elf movement on turn 2. Our friendly repeater crossbowman who got knocked down by the pistolier shot has crawled 2 inches away. One of the Dark Elves has charged out from behind that forest. He could just see the front of that pistolier, so he charged in and hit. The two Corsairs from behind the building have charged around the corner, one into the swordsman, the other into the pistolier. We have the second Dark Elf Cold One Knight has crept around the corner. He's weighing his options, going to see what happens this turn before he commits to anything. And then around here, we have two Corsairs. The first one passed his initiative test, and he was able to blind charge around the corner into that Empire state troop over there. So why don't we start here and go ahead and resolve the battle. So here we're going to resolve the battle between the Dark Elf Corsair and our friendly Empire state militiaman. Corsair has 2 attacks, so he is going to roll 2 dice, and he's weapon skill 4 to the militiaman's weapon skill 3, so he's going to hit on a base 3+. Let's see what happens. Double 6, that's 2 hits. Strength 3 to toughness 3, needs 4 ups to wound. Neither wound. Sigmar is with him. All right, so our Empire militiaman strikes back. Now he has 2 attacks himself because he also has 2 weapons. And striking a very dynamic duelist's pose here. Let's see if he can strike back into the face of the fierce Corsair. 2 hits. He needed 4 up because he's weapon skill 3 against weapon skill 4. Now strength 3 to toughness 3. Let's see if he can lay the fatal blow. One of them does. He needs a 4 or better. So one of those wounds. And our Corsair has a 5+ save because he has a Sea Dragon cloak and light armor. So let's see if the wound can get past that Sea Dragon cloak and pierce the Dark Elf's heart. And it is a 6, which means it bounces off that Sea Dragon cloak. And the fight will continue into the next round. The two foes appear to be evenly matched. Next, we're going to resolve the Dark Elf Corsair against the Empire Pistolier. The Dark Elf Corsair charged. He's weapon skill 5 against the Pistolier's weapon skill 3, so he will hit on a 3+. He does. Let's see if he wounds. He is a modified with his lance charging. He's +2 strength, so this turn he's up to strength 5 against toughness 3. 2 up. He does, and with the save modifier from that, he is going to wound the Empire Pistolier. Let's see what type of wound it is. It's a 5, which I believe is going to knock our brave Pistolier out of action. Yes, the target has been badly hurt and falls to the ground unconscious. He takes no further part in the game and is immediately removed from the battle. So now we have our first casualty. Goodbye, Pistolier. You fought bravely. Our final bit of close combat this turn is between our Dark Elf Corsair and the Imperial Swordsman over there. Since he charged, our Corsair is going to strike first, so he is weapon skill 3. Weapon skill 4 to the Swordsman's weapon skill 4, so he's going to need a 4 up to see if he hits. 3 and a 2, so both miss. So no dice for our Corsair. Then our Swordsman's going to fight back. He's got 1 attack. He's going to hit on a 4. It's a 6. So there you have it. It's a hit. Let's see if it's good enough to wound. Strength 3 to toughness 3 is a 4+. It's a 4+, so it's good enough to wound. But as we know from earlier, Corsair's got a 5-up save for light armor and Sea Dragon cloak. So let's see if he can land his blade true on the Dark Elf assailant. Yet again, our Dark Elf is protected by the Sea Dragon cloak. And the Swordsman's sword bounces off harmlessly. and the two are locked in combat for yet another round. In my excitement to get stuck in the close combat phase, I forgot to do Dark Elf shooting, so we're just going to go ahead and do that now, as it wouldn't have changed regardless. Their targets wouldn't have changed regardless of what happened in close combat. So we will go ahead and roll that and resolve it now. So first up, our Dark Elf on the left here is going to fire again into Old One-Eye across the way. He's within half range. But he is going to fire twice, so he takes a -1 to hit with his repeater crossbow. That'll move him up to a 4+ to hit. Let's see if we can land him. 1 hits, and strength 3 to toughness 3. He'll need a 4+ to wound. He doesn't wound. Old One-Eye's leather jacket is just riddled with Dark Elf crossbow bolts at this point in the day, but he's going strong. Next up, we've got our second Dark Elf repeater crossman. He's going to fire there using the bright bold feather as a target. He's going to fire twice as well, so that'll put a -1 to hit, which will move him to a 4+ to hit. Here we go. 1 hit, strength 3 to toughness 3. He'll need a 4 up to wound. Let's see if he can do it. He does, and unfortunately our dear crossbowman does not have any armor to protect him against that. So no armor save for our crossbowman. Let's roll for the injury. A 6, and he is out of commission. So with that, our second Empire casualty takes place here on Dark Elf turn 2. And goodbye, farewell, good crossbowman. You did your duty. But they should have outfitted you with some armor, and you might still be with us. Our final bit of Dark Elf shooting is going to see a long-range fire support repeater crossbowman down over here fire into Mr. Skullcap down there. It's going to be at long range, which is -1. He's going to fire 2 bolts for another -1. That moves him from 3 to 5. Let's see if he can do it. 1 hits on a 5. He needs a 4 or better to wound. And he wounds, and that is a 6. And I realize I missed this earlier, but it is worth 2 hits with no armor save allowed. Not that Mr. Skullcap has any armor. So with 2 of those, we will roll twice on the injury chart and take the highest result. And a 6 is another out of action. So poor Mr. Skullcap. He's been lucky so far, but he finally takes a repeater crossbow bolt right through the eye, and he is gone. And that is now 3 Imperial soldiers fallen on the day, and it's only Dark Elf turn 2. I don't know if they're going to make it out of here at this point. Looking pretty grim, so we'll see if on Empire turn 2, if they can dig deep into their Nordland hearts and prove their bravery. We'll see. So here we are, the start of Empire turn 2. Things are looking pretty grim. We have one of our militia members locked in close combat with a Corsair. We've taken some casualties, but we do still have our brave knight, and we still do have a pistolier, as well as some brave lads on foot up at the front of that house. So Empire's going to make their moves this turn, and we're going to see if they can rally here in the face of grave danger. Let's see what happens. All right, so let's take you around and show you Empire moves. So this militiaman has charged to help out his friend who's holding off that Corsair. Old One-Eye has pivoted, and he's going to shoot downrange again. This guy has escorted the baggage train up because they've decided if they stay in place, things are probably not going to end well for anyone involved. Our brave knight has charged forward against the Cold One Knight, and right to his right, the two militiamen have charged that Corsair over there, determined to avenge their pistolier brother. And speaking of pistoliers, our second pistolier has decided he's going to charge bravely into the face of the oncoming Cold One Knight. And we will see what happens here. And, did I mention over here, our other militia charged the Dark Elf crossbowmen up here, taking shelter. If I can get him to stand back there. So we will go ahead and take Old One-Eye's shot with his crossbow downrange. It is going to be a long-range shot, which will be a -1 modifier. So Old One-Eye is going to need a 5-up to hit. And he gets a 1 and misses horribly, probably due to the fact that he has only one eye. In case any of y'all are wondering why I keep referring him to that, it's because he does in fact only have one eye. He missed the casting call for Pirates of the Caribbean, and he took duty as a escort on a Empire baggage train, much to his chagrin. All right, so let's dive into these combats here. So the first one we're going to do is resolve the charge from this fella here up in on that Corsair. Let's take a look. He's got 2 hand weapons, so he makes 2 attacks. Weapon skill 3 to weapon skill 4 on the Dark Elf. He's going to need a 4+ to land a hit. And he lands 2 with a 6 and a 5. Oh, goodness. Gotta get out of my own way. So that's 2 hits. And strength 3 against toughness 3. He needs 4+ to wound. Let's see if he can do it. 3 and a 2. Not good enough to get it done. So our Dark Elf Corsair will then strike back, and he doesn't like this new charger, so he's going to direct both his attacks against him. He's weapon skill 4 on the Dark Elf to weapon skill 3 on the militiaman, so he'll hit on 3s. That's a 3 and a 5, 2 hits. He needs a 4 or better to wound. That's a 6 and a 5. As we discussed last turn, a 6 is a critical hit. So he's actually going to get to roll 3 dice on the injury table and take the highest result. Let's see. That is a 6. So that means our brave companion here who charged the Dark Elf has been knocked out of action, and he will be removed from the game. Things are looking very grim for our Empire baggage train defenders at this point. Let's see if our brave companion here can avenge his brother who tried to come to his rescue. He needs 4+ to hit. He lands 2 hits with a 6 and a 5. Can he wound on a 4 or better? 2 wounds. All right. The death of his companion must have spurred him on to glory. Let's roll the injury table, see what we get here. 5 and a 4. I believe a 5 knocks him out of action. So we now have our first Dark Elf casualty off the board. So score 1 for the Empire. Next up, we have the glorious charge of the Empire Knight, who is charging in against the Cold One Knight over there. And we will see here if he can guide his lance to its mark. So he's weapon skill 4 against the Dark Elves weapon skill 5. So he will need a 4+ to hit. We'll roll him on the blue dice. His horse we will roll on the red dice. And both of them are going to need a 4+ to hit. Neither one hits. So the Dark Elf Cold One must hear him coming and turn around and scares the horse, and the horse jumps and it pushes the lance out of the way, and now our Dark Elf gets to strike back. So we're going to go ahead and roll our Dark Elf and his Cold One. Dark Elf will be black, Cold One will be gray. The Dark Elf will hit on a 3, Cold One is going to hit on a 4. Both miss. 2 ones. So they continue to be locked in combat. Next we have our Pistolier, a brave Pistolier against the other Dark Elf Cold One Knight. He is going to get 2 attacks because he gets 2 pistols in close combat. He's weapon skill 3 against Dark Elf's weapon skill 5, so he's going to need 4s to hit, and his horse, which I'll roll on the gray dice, will also need a 4 to hit. Alright, so we get 1 hit with one of the pistols, and that will hit at strength 4, which means it will wound our Dark Elf on a 3 or better. Let's see if it's good enough. It's good enough, and our Dark Elf will get a armor saving throw modifier reduced by 2, so he goes from 2 to a 4 up. So if he gets a 4 up on this roll, the black powder musket ball discharges off the shield that he's got, and if it's less than that, it's going to pierce. Let's go ahead and look. It's a 5, so Dark Elf armor stays true, and the musket ball bounces off, and it gets right through the shield, but it beds itself in the chainmail underneath, who knows. But anyway, our Dark Elf Cold One Knight stays alive to fight back. So he's got 1 attack, and his Cold One does as well. The Dark Elf will hit on a 3, and he's on the black dice. Cold One hits on a 4 on the gray. Let's roll him, see what happens. That is 2 hits. So the Dark Elf is strength 3, so the black dice is going to wound on a 4 or better, and the gray dice from the Cold One, who's strength 4, will wound on a 3 or better. Let's see if they can get it done. And looks like the Cold One bites through. He's strength 4, which carries a -1 save modifier, and that means that will bump our Pistolier's armor save from a 5 to a 6, so needs to see a 6 here or he's going to fall. And he's a long way away from a 6. So say goodbye, dear Pistolier. You fought well. So things are looking very poor for our Empire friends here at the moment. Let's go ahead and take a look here. We have one of the militiamen charging uphill into the crossbowmen. Let's see if he is able to avenge his fallen friends with a mighty charge. He has 2 attacks, hitting on 4s. Both miss. It is not the Empire's day. Sigmar apparently has better things to do than to attend to his faithful Nordlanders. Perhaps they should have chosen Ulrich. Our Dark Elf repeater crossbowman fights back with 1 attack. He hits on 3s, and he misses as well. So apparently Khaine has better things to do than these 2. Getting to our final combats of the round, we have 2 Empire Militia against 1 Corsair, and I'm going to roll them all together since they both charged. So that's 4 attacks total. They're hitting on 4s. And none of them managed to hit. So our Dark Elf Corsair fights back, hitting on 3s with 2 attacks. 2 hits. Strength 3 to toughness 3, wounding on 4s. And one of those gets in. And because our militiamen have no armor, one of them falls. So yet another Empire casualty on the day. Lastly, we'll see if our veteran swordsman here can fight off this Corsair. But the Corsair is going to get to strike with a higher initiative. So he actually gets to fight first. 2 attacks, hitting on 4s. Neither hits. And then our swordsman will fight back, hitting on 4. It does hit. And needs a 4 better to wound. And it fails to wound. So they stay locked in combat. And that is the end of Empire turn 2. So here is the situation at the start of Dark Elf turn 3. We have a Corsair who's probably going to charge that militiaman. We have another militiaman locked in combat with that repeater crossbowman. And over here we've got a Dark Elf Cold One Knight who's ready to charge. We've got crossbowman who's been wounded, who might recover. Another one standing up, ready to lend fire support. Then down here we've got a Corsair locked in combat with the swordsman, a Corsair locked in combat with the militiaman, and this Cold One Knight is locked in combat with this Empire Knight. And things are not looking good for the Imperial side, but we'll see. Perhaps Sigmar will come to their aid yet. So let's dive in. So as discussed here, we have the Corsair who is charged into combat with the militiaman. We have one of the Peter crossbowmen hop down there to try and get into firing position. This Dark Elf Cold One Knight has charged in to the Imperial Knight. Dark Elves are ruthless and they're not going to observe the honor of a single combat. He's going to go in and try and spear that Imperial Knight while he's tied up with the other Cold One Knight. And then over here, our last repeater crossbowman has gotten back up on his feet. He'll be ready to shoot in the shooting phase. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and dive in and see what the Dark Elves can shoot this turn. So our first shot will come from this Dark Elf repeater crossbowman here into the militiaman over there. It's within short range, so no penalties for going above half range, but he's going to fire 2 bolts, which means he's at -1. That'll move him up from a 3+ base to a 4+. So firing with 2 dice, needing 4+ to hit. Here we go. And we got a 6 and a 3, so one of those is going to hit. It's a strength 3 hit to toughness 3 on the target, means a 4 up to wound. Let's see what he can do with the wound. And it's a 5 on the wound, which means that militiaman will go down. Another casualty for the Empire. And once again, getting in my own way here with Mr. Big Sword. So that last casualty there does put the Empire troops over 50% casualties. Normally they have to take a rout test if you're over 25% casualties. However, in this particular scenario, the threshold for the Empire is at 50, and that is 7 casualties on the Emperor's side, which puts them just north of the 50% threshold. So on the Empire next turn, they're going to have to make that check. But before we get into that, let's continue with the close combat phase in Dark Elf turn 3. So the first combat we will look at here is Mr. Big Sword against the Dark Elf repeater crossbowman. Of course, Dark Elves are faster, which means they get to attack first, and this particular Dark Elf will hit Mr. Big Sword on a 3+. Let's see if he can do it. And that is a 1. So no hit by the Dark Elf. Let's take a look and see if Mr. Big Sword can hit back. I know he is armed with a big sword. However, I just ran out of models that had 2-hand weapons. So that is what he has. So 2-hand weapons means 2 attacks. Let's see if Mr. Big Sword can get it done. And 2 and 2. Another swing and a miss here by Empire troops. This is not a ringing endorsement of the Empire militia system. So those 2 are going to stay locked in combat till next turn. And coming over here to the right, we have the Dark Elf Corsair engaged in combat with what I believe is the second to last militiamen here on the field. Again, Dark Elves have a quicker initiative, being elves, so he's going to strike first. He's two-hand weapons, so 2 attacks hitting on 3s. And that is a 1 and a 3. So 1's going to hit. Does he wound? He's strength 3 to toughness 3, so he'll need a 4 up to see if he wounds. And that is a 5er. So that is a wound, and as our Empire Militia do not have armor, he has no chance to make an armor save. This will be the end of our faithful swashbuckling fellow here. You put up a good fight, my friend, but the Corsairs were just too much of a match for you. Those Sea Dragon cloaks, Karl Franz needs to put in order for those. Coming around the board here, we're going to move next into the second Dark Elf Cold One Knight, who charged into combat against our Imperial Knight of the Inner Circle. So the Cold One will be rolling on a gray dice, and the Knight will be rolling on a black dice. The Knight has higher weapon skill, so he will hit on a 3. The Cold One lower, so he will hit on a 4. Let's go ahead and roll here and see what we get. Both hit. We've got a 4 for the Knight and a 5 from the Cold One himself. So the Knight attacking with a lance has +2 strength. That means he will wound with a 2 this turn. And the Cold One is strength 4, so he will wound on a 3. So again, keeping dice colors the same. Gray for the Cold One, black for the Knight. We need a 2 and a 3. All right, so the Cold One looks like he scored a hit. The Dark Elf, showing that the Empire cannot be the only faction on the table rolling once today, whiffed his lance attack with a 1 on the wound, but the Cold One only needed a 3 or better, and he got a 3, so that's going to score a wound. Now the question is, can our Imperial Knight's armor stave it off? He has a base of a 1+ armor save, and that will go up to a 2, which means anything on a 2 or better, he's going to deflect. So let's see, can you do it, Mr. Knight? And he got a 1. Oh my goodness, folks. There it is. He goes down. Our brave Imperial Knight, our brave Nordlander Knight, falls beneath the claws of a hungry Cold One on this very dark day for the Emperor's finest here in Nordland. Our next combat here, we'll see the penultimate militiaman in battle against his Corsair foe. Again, Dark Elves have higher initiative, so they will strike first. The Corsair gets 2 attacks for 2 hand weapons, hitting on 3s. Let's see. That's 2 5s. That's 2 hits. He needs 4s to wound. Can he get him? That's 2 wounds. That means 2 injury rolls, and he can take the highest. Let's take a look. And a 6 is another out of action. So farewell to our fine wolf cloak armed Nordlander. If I can get him in focus there for the camera. He had a fearsome war cry. Very good fight. But sadly not enough to stand toe-to-toe with the Dark Elf Corsairs. And that moves us in for the final fight of Dark Elf turn 3 between the Imperial Swordsman and yet another Dark Elf Corsair. Corsair attacks, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s. That's 1 hit, wounding on 4s. It doesn't wound. Our Swordsman will strike back, hitting on a 4. And he misses. So those 2 will stay locked in combat. So here is the situation as we head into Empire Turn 3. The final veteran swordsman there is still alive and about to be really ganged up on. The caravan is basically unprotected, save for one old one-eye and his crossbow. And there is one last militiaman fighting for his life on the top of the hill against a Dark Elf repeater crossbowman. And these guys are all going to have to take a route test anyway at the beginning of their next turn. And we're going to say that at this point, the Empire can concede the field. There's really no way they can win, because on the next turn, the Dark Elves can just kill all the horses on the baggage train pretty easily, which will then hand the day to them. So anyway, yeah, this is a wrap for the first battle report here. Score 1 for the Dark Elves. They fought well. I have to say, Sigmar was certainly not with the Empire's dice today, but it was a good fun fight while it lasted. I enjoyed it. It's great to see all these painted minis up on the field of battle and get some dice rolling. I hope you enjoyed it too, and we'll see. Maybe in the future we can do another one of these. And one thing I did want to mention before we close the book on today's battle is that you don't actually need the Warhammer Skirmish supplement to actually play this. If you've got a copy of the 6th edition rulebook here, which I've got lined up in front of me, all you have to do is flip it open to Appendix 3, and it's got all the rules that you need for Warhammer Skirmish there. And it's maybe 4 or 5 pages. You can read it in maybe 15 minutes and be playing. If it's something that interests you, the Skirmish book supplement, as I recall, has some more advanced rules if you want to really get into it, and a lot of scenarios like this baggage train, but there's certainly nothing to stop you from devising your own scenarios as you see fit and just playing with the Skirmish rules in the handy dandy 6th edition rule book. If that's something that interests you, it plays pretty quick, and the model count's obviously much lower than a full-fledged rank and flank game of Warhammer. So if that's of interest to you, grab a copy of your 6th edition rule book. You can find them secondhand pretty cheap if you don't already have one, and give it a look. A lot of good stuff in here. So I just thought I would tape a quick little post-game, share a couple thoughts with you. For one, I'm just really happy to have done this. It might be a mess on the video end, but it was a lot of fun to do, and I'm glad I did it. I hope it was enjoyable for any of you guys who decided to watch. But moving on, I know I made some mistakes, kind of just thinking back on it now. I know I missed a recovery on our Dark Elf crossbowman who was over there, who got knocked down, I believe on turn 2. He probably could have stood up. I also missed a critical hit on him with the Pistolier. Roll a 6 to wound. That's a critical hit. It means you roll twice on the wound chart to see what happens. So potentially he could have been knocked out. I know I probably missed a couple other things in there. I hope you can bear with me through it. This was actually my first game ever of Warhammer Skirmish. I don't even think I played it back when 6th edition came out. We just played the rank and flank standard version of the rules. So this is really my first brush with it. So I hope you'll forgive me for getting a couple things wrong here and there. Sometimes I think you just got to roll with it in the spirit of keeping a good narrative, which is what I tried to do here. Hopefully you agree. And so anyway, let's take a look here at some of the fallen. We've got this guy who looks like he also could have tried out for Pirates of the Caribbean as well. Oh, I can't get him in focus. There we go. So he's got us a little bandana and his machete. He's ready to go. He didn't do much today. He died really quick. So sorry, bud. Our next guy. These guys are all models here from the 6th edition Free State militia kit that came out in plastic. They were multi-pose, and they were really cool when they came out around, I want to say 2000, summer 2000, if memory serves. And anyway, this guy, he's got a wild look in his eye. He's got a sword and a dagger, and he's ready to go. You know, he fought well today. He held on against a better opponent for a while. This fella here, our one-armed man, yeah, he came to the aid of his fellow there against the Corsair here, and got wiped out. And so he died trying to save his friend. So that's commendable. You did good, son. This is one of my favorite models from that kit. I call him the Swashbuckler. He just got a dashing look about him, and I just like it. I love the look. And anyway, he went to toe-to-toe for a couple rounds, so he did well. Not having any armor puts you at a disadvantage when you've got somebody in a Sea Dragon cloak and light armor. And this is another guy that I like. He's kind of giving you a battle cry here, raising his sword up. He's got the wolf coat, as I think befits a Nordlander. So I like this guy a lot. I wish he'd fought better, but maybe next time. Then we've got our crossbowman here, Mr. Skullcap, who got pegged in the eye from halfway across the board. I think that was one of the errors that I made. I think I didn't. That guy would have needed a 6 because he was firing at long range, which was -1. And he fired 2 bolts, which puts him at another -1. No, that's 3 to 4, 4 to 5. Yeah, so sorry. I didn't make a mistake. You did deserve to die. Sorry, Mr. Skullcap. I hope it was quick. And our dashing crossbowman, you know, he didn't hit anything. Well, none of our crossbowmen hit anything today. So I guess we can't hold that against you. At least you look good doing it, right? Yeah. Okay. Then our pistoliers, our brave pistoliers. You know, the rule book talks about them being young nobles and having fire in their blood and being quick to bravery and impetuous acts. And these guys lived up to that reputation today. They charged. They fired their pistols, and sadly they died. So that guy went down, as well as our our action shot guy as well here. And finally, our knight of the inner circle here, who we had all hoped would save the day for the Empire. Well, he tried. He sadly did, but a hungry cold one devoured him and his trusty steed. So perhaps another day, the men of Nordland will perform better, as befits their reputation as bold northern warriors of the Empire. And our lone Dark Elf casualty today, here is a Corsair. And yeah, I just love these models. These are the 4th edition Dark Elf sculpts by Allie Morrison and Colin Dixon, and came out in 1995. I love them. I've loved them since I was a kid. Look like they're charging a battle. You got a little war cry going on there, and yeah, just some of my favorites. So anyway, he fought well. You got the Sea Dragon cloak there that we referenced throughout the game on his back, and yeah. So those are the guys. Honorable mentions today. The Litany of the Fallen fell on our tabletop today. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. It was fun. I'd like to see if I can do it again. I'll have to think up another scenario. Maybe dive back into the Warhammer Skirmish book and see if there's something that'll fit well with what I've got on hand here. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it's a real cool thing you can do with the rules. It's nice that they put those rules in the back of the 6th edition rule book there, so that you don't need a full rank and flank army to get playing. You can do it here with, I don't know, we got less than 20 on the table, I'm sure. So, you know, you can do it with less than 20. With higher points cost armies, you could probably do it with even less than that. If you had, something like chaos or something dwarves, something like that, you could probably do it with 10 or 15 even. So yeah, and it's a really interesting system. If you know Warhammer, you can play it. There's not too much variation. Your standard weapon skill, strength to toughness roll, and then armor saves. And if you know that, then you know most of it. Yeah, for a lot of us, that system is kind of hardwired into our brains, and we can kind of do it like I did today without really even having to look at the charts or anything like that, which is nice, particularly as you're getting older in age like I am. So anywho, so that's the end. Say goodbye to our Cold One Knights as they about to dive in and start pilfering the baggage train. And for narrative purposes, we're going to say that old One Eye goes ahead and fires off a bolt into one of those corsairs to secure his escape off the field. And I'll let you guys decide in your own minds what happens to our trusty Imperial swordsman over there and Mr. Big Sword, who couldn't stay on top of the hill. So anyway, thanks for sitting with me through this. Great to have you here for this first ever battle report for the channel. Like I said, we'll see if we can't look into doing some more of these in the future. So anyway, I'm signing off. Until next time, keep painting, keep playing, and keep hobbying.